Special Counsel Robert Mueller is reportedly looking into late-night phone calls between President Trump and his informal advisor Roger Stone from 2016. According to the Washington Post, the special counsel is scrutinizing what then-candidate Trump may have learned about Stone about those stolen emails that were released by WikiLeaks. Prosecutors say that those emails were obtained by Russian hackers. Joining me now with more, Manuel Roig Franzia, who co-authored that report for the Washington Post. So, Manuel, how important is that Stone-Trump relationship for the Mueller investigation?
It could become critical, and the reason is that prosecutors have been looking at whether Roger Stone or anyone else was able to be a direct connection between WikiLeaks and the Trump campaign, and specifically Donald Trump. All of these phone calls give an indication that Stone and Trump at least had a line of communication during the campaign at a time when Stone was beginning to learn through his sources that WikiLeaks might be coming with some damaging material about Hillary Clinton.
So, Manuel, the timing of your report comes as Stone's associate, Jerome Corsi, says that he's rejected a plea deal that was offered by Mueller. How does Corsi really play into this story?
Corsi, more and more, has become a significant figure. For your viewers who might not have heard of him before, he's best known as the father of birtherism, this false idea that Barack Obama was born outside of the United States. He became very friendly with Roger Stone, and he did research for Roger Stone, sort of opposition research for him. And Jerome Corsi this week released a plea deal that he had been offered by the special counsel's office. That plea deal, which he has rejected, has some very interesting details in it, including an email that he sent, that Jerome Corsi sent, on August 2nd to Roger Stone, suggesting that WikiLeaks was going to be coming with some bad material. Why is that important? Why? Because we have learned that Roger Stone spoke on the phone the very next day, August 3, to Donald Trump. Prosecutors could be looking at that and asking, how could these two not have talked about this juicy tidbit, this speculation that could be very important in the campaign?
So what did the president and Roger Stone have to say about all this?
Roger Stone says that the two of them talked a lot late at night, and that it was usually Roger Stone listening to Donald Trump talking, that Donald Trump made it hard to get a word in edgewise. But we learned some interesting things about these phone calls. Roger Stone would look at his phone and the caller ID would come up as unknown. That would usually be an indication that Donald Trump was on the phone for him. Another thing, Donald Trump would sometimes call Roger Stone using someone else's phone. That would be a complicating factor for prosecutors who are trying to untangle this relationship. As far as what they talked about, Stone says it was just regular political gossip, what was going on in the campaign, and specifically he's adamant about this. He says that they never talked about WikiLeaks, not in the August 3 conversation I mentioned, or ever.
So, Manuel, you've been following this story pretty aggressively. What do you still want to know about all of this?
Oh, the most interesting thing to try to understand is whether WikiLeaks had some sort of a way to get information to either Roger Stone or the Trump campaign about their plans. The reason that their plans are so important is that those releases that they made during the campaign really rocked the campaign. And there have been some allegations that they might have timed the release of some of that material to blunt stories that were coming out that were negative about Donald Trump. Now, I would say that that is denied very aggressively by Roger Stone, it's denied by the Trump campaign, but you can be sure that the prosecutors are looking very closely at the timeline and the chronology to try to put together who knew what and when.
You also, I want to point out, have a new feature out in the Washington Post. It's called The Swamp Builders, how Stone and Manafort helped create the mess President Trump promised to clean up. So what can you tell us about Stone and Manafort's history in Washington?
Yeah, this is for a series we're doing that's called All the Best People. It derives its name from a phrase that Donald Trump used. Paul Manafort and Roger Stone have this really interesting history in Washington, D.C. that we learned a lot about through the research for that piece. In the early 1980s, they started a lobbying and political consulting firm that was super controversial. The reason was that they were both trying to get people elected to Congress and then lobbying those same people. At the time, it was a radical idea to do that, but now it tends to be pretty common. So in a sense, what they have done is created what we call the modern swamp of Washington, D.C. And they did it when they were pretty young guys. Stone in his late 20s, Manafort in his early 30s. They were the toast of Washington, D.C., and everybody was talking about them.
How times change. Manuel Roig Franzia, thank you very much for joining us from the Washington Post.
Pleasure to be with you.